Hey everybody. So today, actually since last week's video where we made this watch strap, I got a custom order for a watch strap changing pad, which I didn't even know was a thing. But I thought it'd be a cool opportunity to kind of walk you through like how I tackle custom orders of pieces that I've never made before. Now this isn't hard by any means, it's just basically a 8.5 by 11 mat, but it's going to have a little divot that we're going to cut out and line with this red Sedgwick here so that you can kind of store your watch strap, your watch changing tool, and your spring bars and stuff so that they don't get lost while you're changing watch straps. So not a big one today, but it should be fun. So let's get into it. So this is the Wicket and Craig milled deer print veg tan that I've been obsessed with. Customer requested this, and the customer is actually Case and Dial. If you want to check him out on Instagram, he makes custom Seikos. And he's actually making me a watch right now. But we got to talking, he asked me if I could make one of these for him. And I said that'd be kind of a cool video. So that's what we're going to do. And first thing I'm going to do is just chop this down to size. So I'm just using the lines on my cutting board and a straight edge. That's all you need to make right angles. And he asked for 8 by 10. I think I'm going to go 8.5 by 11. Just because I kind of have this concept of I just want to see if I can make this whole thing just using a piece of paper as a template without like going into Illustrator, because I know a lot of you guys don't use Illustrator, and I think it could be cool to just show you how I would go about this, kind of making a template on the fly. So let me grab a good scratch awl here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just trace out the 8.5 by 11. And I'm only going to do this once so I can kind of look at the sizing. If it makes more sense to chop it down to 8 by 10, I will, but 8.5 11 is pretty standard size, and I think there'd be a nice amount of working room to have a couple watches down there and mess around with straps. And if you're not like a real big watch person, which admittedly many people aren't these days, it's just kind of part of the fun of it is to get a couple straps and switch amongst watches and see what looks nice, and every once in a while switch straps between watches and that kind of thing. So that's what this would be generally used for. Now without using the computer, all I'm going to do is I'm going to just take this 8.5 by 11. I'm using like heavy cardstock that you can just buy at Staples or wherever. I'm going to cut a 3/4 inch strip. Now you can do this, most rulers are 1 1/4 inch wide. So what I'm doing is, instead of lining this up like this with my grid, right, so that's a 1/2 inch, if I line it up with the back side, that gives me a perfect 1/4 inch extra. So this will be exactly 3/4 inch. There we go. Now I'm going to take a pencil, and we know one side, so we're going to do, what did I say, 5? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is right there. Now all we need is our 3/4 inch strap end punch, and this is how I'm going to round the corners. Nice and simple, and gets us the perfect rounded punch here. There we go. So because this is 11 across, and this is 5, I've marked my center line at 2.5 here, and I'm just kind of freestyling it and seeing where I want to put it, where it looks best. And I think it looks best giving us 1 inch gap up top. So all we're going to do is lock that in, and again I'm just running my ruler across the top here, and we can just roughly trace this out. Now we're going to use our strap end punch to get this curve because this is too tight for me to cut by hand. So using my strap end punch here, I'm just going to line it up with my tracing, and that's all I'm going to do to cut my corners. You don't need to go in and do anything else crazy. If you have a 3/4 inch like hole punch set, you could use that as well. And then we just go in with our straight edge and connect the dots basically. Like that. And there we go. Couldn't get more easy than that. So now you can see once we have a little liner in here, this doesn't need to be that deep. See, it'll hold. This is all it needs to hold. So now what we need to do is I'm going to edge this. But I'm not going to edge the corners because when you use the punch, it kind of naturally rounds them over. All we need to do is edge just these flats, and it'll look nice and tidy. Like so. So we have a red Cedric panel here. You guys know I've been obsessed with Bulko Guy selling the Cedric panels. It's split down to about 4 ounces, and we're going to skive it a little more. But what I'm going to do is, I want it to come out, I don't necessarily think I want it to come out all the way. I want it to come out like a 1/2 inch. So we'll do it like maybe 1.5 inches by like 6 inches. So I'm just going to cut a whole 1.5 inch strip out of this. And this was a panel, but I've used some of it, so I don't remember what size panel it was. Oh, it was the, whatever panel they have that's a 12, maybe a 12 by 24, I think. So this is 1.5 inches. And then we're going to cut that down to 6. So before I do any skiving, I'm going to take an 1.5 inch belt end punch, and I'm actually going to round the edges so that if you do end up seeing like kind of the outline of this, it'll kind of echo the shape of the little tool holder slot that we're creating. And now we need to do some skiving. So I'm going to take my dividers. I'm going to set them to about 3/8 of an inch. And I'm going to mark myself a little line. And if you've been watching for a long time, you know this is how I do it. And what this does is it gives you a little line to skive from. And if you don't have a bell skiver, like we don't, nice way to get a nice tidy skive that's very even all the way around. Now, the Sedgwick is a little hard to skive, so you want to make sure that your skiving knife is nice and sharp. I just sharpened this guy. So we're going to go in, and we're going to do our best to get a good skive on this. When you're doing tight corners like this, I'm not going to try to like take the whole thing off. I'm going to use just this inside corner here and almost like score it a little bit. And then once you have it scored, then you can go in. You're not using the whole knife, you're just using just this little corner here. There we go. And you can see then we get a nice, you can go in and clean that up too, but you see how then we got this nice compact skive, and it kind of keeps everything the same all the way around. I'll show you again on this side. So I have my line here. Going into this, I'm not going to just kind of push. I'm going to take just that little corner right there and kind of just score it just a little bit. And that's usually all it takes to give you a good guidance. Go in and score, and then do your full skive. Go in and score, and then do your full skive. Score, and then do your full skive. And now that we're on the straight again, oh, actually we're done. There we go. We call that a full pull when you can get the whole thing in one go, which is, there's zero reason to do that, but when you're skiving all day, every day, you kind of just have to make up games to make it more interesting. So I'm going to really thin this out because I don't want you to be able to see where the red kind of blends in. Now you might be able to, and that's okay, but we're going to do our best to make sure that this part is paper thin. And if you have to take it, if you need to use sandpaper, that's totally fine too. Cobblers do it all the time. So don't feel like you have to be able to get this down to paper thin with just your skiving knife. You can use any tools that you have at your disposal to do it. And you can see, I don't know if you can see on the camera, but the red is coming through right here. That's kind of what I'm looking for to know that I'm as skived as I can get. Alright, so this is going to be the back, and I want to get a logo in this. So I want the logo to kind of, on the back of it, kind of fall where this is on the front. So I have this set to 1 1/4 inch. And I'm just going to do a small pencil mark at 5.5 because we're doing 11 inches here. And we can erase this once we have our thing, once we have everything stamped in and stuff. Now, the reason that we're doing it this way, we need to draw out on the back here, this way, exactly where we need to mount our little red piece. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line at 3/4 inch, and remember that none of this will ever be seen. And then we are going to draw a line at 3/4 inch here. And then we need to find the center. 5.5. And then we're going to go 2.5 because we know that this is 5. Boom, boom. So now this is 1.5 inches. So we know that we should have about 1/4 inch right here. And that should line up perfectly. I'm simply going to line this up as best I can here. There we go. And then I'm just going to use my roller to make sure that everything's nice and stuck. This is very, very slick leather, and I want to make sure I get a good bond. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my calipers and go down to about 1/4 inch. And I'm just going to make a little line. Now this is much further in than our gap's going to be. I don't want to risk any of this showing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rough this up so we get good adhesion with our glue around this, even though we're going to stitch it. I want to make sure that there's no chance of anything really pulling up or anything like that. So in combination with a ruler, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this in my rougher to scratch this up and make sure, because this is a very slippery leather, to make sure we get good adhesion with the glue. Decided to add a little gold embossing there, which probably should have done before I glued everything together. I'm using this tin foil to sort of make sure the rest of this doesn't stick while I'm sticking the top part. But we're just going to go in, and I want to make sure that I get this even, because we cut this hole, it's not going to just stay parallel, so we're going to use the edge of our back piece, which is why we cut it, to size without trim allowance, to make sure, and you can see I already have to pull this up a little bit, to make sure that we're going to be nice and straight and parallel. There we go. And we'll just press that down like that. So now, we can pull this out.
Excuse me.
Bless you. And pull that out and get the rest of this very carefully stuck. Okay, so we have a lot of stitching to do now. We're going to go with the cream thread and then a dark brown edge. But you can see the design here is so you put your watches here, and then this is, it looks like a little branding spot, but really it's just a little tray for little spring bars and the spring bar tool. That's pretty much it. It's something nice to have on your desk. So I'm going to get to sewing because my account, this is about 2.5 feet of sewing around this whole thing. And in an hour or two, we'll be back to do the edges and see what it looks like in its final form. So I dyed the edge and I burnished with gum trag, and now what I'm doing is I'm taking beeswax and I'm applying a super heavy coat. This is one of those things that's just going to be left on a desk, and so it's not going to be touched a lot. With wallets and stuff, your hands, the oils from your hands kind of keep things hydrated, but with a piece like this, I like to go a little heavy on the edge coating because it's not really going to be touched, so it's not really going to naturally get oiled or anything. So super heavy on the wax, and then we get the heat gun set to low, and we're just going to slowly melt that in. And here we go. So just your basic mat, but it was really fun to make, and I'll show you what it's for. So say you want to switch straps on your watch, you have a nice pad so that your watch isn't getting dinged up on, say this is granite or something. This is your spring bar tool, and we're going to go in and we're going to, I'm only going to do one, but take the spring bar out. You can put your spring bar there, you can put your tool there, you have a nice place to put your watch. So there we go. That's going to be it. This is a super fun one. If you are into watches, Case and Dial, he makes super nice custom Seikos and all sorts of modded stuff. I'm sure you'll be seeing the one that we've been working on together soon on the channel. But this is a really fun product to make. So give this a try if you're into watches. I suppose you could also just take this out and make, just glue two pieces of leather together and make nice workstation mats or whatever as well. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.